wish I could space these videos out more in terms of the memorial videos, in the sense of having less of a need for them. Say, once per fiscal quarter, or once per half of the year. Certainly it's only been like a month and a half since my last one, but it lasted this time for another. In case you missed the title card, I'm recording this video the day that it came out that Ozzy Osbourne passed. So, Wayback Machine back to when I'm in grade school. Not like middle school, like grade school. Parents living in an apartment. Across the room from me, I have a tape deck. A stereo. Boombox type setup with a cassette player. And there are like a couple stations I keep it to on the regular. This is not a fancy one where you can set it to a setting, hold down the button, and then when you push your memorized thing, it'll snap to that setting or anything that. Where before that, you have to turn a dial. So when you find a station you like, you tend to stay on it for a while. So I tend to bounce between a couple. Generally on the same area of the dial, which is nice because they're just pretty close together. One is my local public radio station, 91.5 KOPB. I'm not quite listening to that much classical music or jazz at the moment, so I'm not going that much far down to 89.9 or 89.1 for the jazz and classical music station. So mainly I'm staying either public broadcasting or, and this is where I spend most of my time on, 92.3 KGON, the local classic rock station. And this is a point where stations have a degree of autonomy and built a local DJ culture and that sort of thing, as opposed to now where, like, you may have some local DJs, but often the programming is a pre-written playlist sent from on high. And I'm listening to the station. I listen to House of Blues Radio Hour in the evening. I listen to Dawn of the Dead on Sunday mornings, the Grateful Dead stuff, but also just listen throughout the day. And one of the bands that comes up around the time actually I first discovered the station, I believe, well, I hear a very distinctive guitar riff. I'm familiar with rock at this point. My dad owns like Grateful Dead albums, Jethro Tull albums, Led Zeppelin albums, and I hear that like a really distinctive pounding guitar riff. Da 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 da. Paranoid by Black Sabbath. And continue to listen to the station. I hear Iron Man. I hear not so much actually like Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, or Black Sabbath, or that sort of thing. Might hear a reasonable amount of Black Sabbath. And later on in middle school, I start hearing about Ozzy's own solo work, because at this, like, by the time I'm hearing it, Ozzy's albums, he's already been sacked from Sabbath at this point and released a bunch of solo albums. And at various points here and there, he will do temporary reunions with Sabbath, but nothing like long-term quite yet. So, here, like, this sounds great. Later on, through middle school and high school, I will check out Black Sabbath albums from the library, particularly like once I get my own computer with a hard drive and a CD-ROM drive. I may have, in fact, at that time, with statute of limitations passed, checked out some CDs from the library and ripped them to my computer and put into mixed CDs to take, particularly once I go to college, to take on my commute to college. Particularly once music streaming services come around and I start listening to music on my commutes, because now I'm in the workforce and I have my phone set up with my stereo in my car. I have like start listening to discographies of bands, and one of the bands I go through is I go through Ozzy's discography and enjoy a bunch of it. At this point, he's not really touring as much anymore, certainly not coming to the Pacific Northwest as often as he used to. So I never really had a chance to see him live. But I gained a great deal of appreciation and love for him as a musician. Also around this time, like getting into high school and college, this is around the time the Osbournes comes out, and I get a sense of Ozzy as a person. Yes, reality television is often staged to present particular perspectives of a person. In this case, often depicting Ozzy as a very brain-fried individual, barely keeping his stuff together, and being kind of held on track by Sharon, which admittedly sounds like that was mostly the case for much of his life, pretty much from getting ousted from Sabbath on. But it definitely said to him, it took, on the one hand, a bit of the edge off of Ozzy, made him a bit of a more fuzzy character. That warm and fuzzy character, as opposed to the menacing Prince of Darkness that so often appears on his album covers and his music videos. But still, this doesn't blunt in any way his music. It still comes across that he's either he or through his songwriter or through the songwriters who've written for him has things he wants to say, and he's a person who has a excellent singing voice, honestly, within his certain limitations of his vocal range, and has a just interesting and incredibly talented musician, who's between him and his now widow, is Sharon Osbourne, for the record, kind of sucks in a lot of ways, both in a professional business sense in the terms of mistreating the songwriters on the Ozzy Osbourne's for early solo albums, because Ozzy did not write those, but Ozzy was she arranged to have Ozzy get a solo credit and songwriting credit anyway. No bueno. Also, she's been kind of turfy, not great. But I always got the impression from Ozzy himself that, by contrast, like Ozzy, his worldview in terms of political perspective did not necessarily mesh with that of his wife. They're together because in a lot of respects he recognizes that she's helping to keep him together, and that's an important thing. Not just from to him, like not just keeping him together, but also probably keeping him alive. And there's more to that in terms of their relationship than just their political views. But ultimately, I think my exposure to Ozzy was one of the four bands that helped shape my musical taste. It's like Ozzy, and by extension, Ozzy and Sabbath, Zeppelin, Rush, and Pink Floyd. To an extension, we're kind of linked with Pink Floyd and Rush, the prog rock genre, Jethro Tull as well. And my musical tastes have branched out considerably beyond rock, metal, and prog rock. Again, I listen to classical music, listen to jazz, blues, all sorts of other stuff. But Ozzy's one of the cornerstones of that. Ozzy, again, on his own and through Sabbath, has one of the cornerstones of what musically made me. Oftentimes when I'm working on the thing, or just playing video games on my own, or listening to something to kind of up my pace when I'm going on a walk to get my heart rate, or jog to get my heart rate going, or what have you, I'm going to go to metal And not only am I going to go to metal, I'm going to lean for something along the lines of Ozzy. Not just like Sabbath, but Ozzy. And that says a lot, I think. So, I didn't do this video when Ozzy did his formal retirement because, I mean, when you get a basically all-day retirement concert festival for your last show, me saying something on a YouTube video doesn't necessarily have the same impact. It doesn't feel like, oh, I don't need to say anything here. He's still around. Until he's not. So, thank you, Ozzy Osbourne. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe. And also consider backing my Patreon. Patreon backers get episodes up to 1 week early of this show and any future Let's Plays. Also, please consider backing my Ko-fi. Toss me a few bucks also helps support the show, and it's not a monthly obligation or anything like that.